They don't go for salary. And within the university system, no, I must place the union in proper pathway for people to understand.
Hello and welcome. Now, in the last 1 week, there has been tension in Abia State, southeast Nigeria. The once peaceful state known as God's own state has now become the center of attention since the leader of separatist group, the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, Nnamdi Kanu, was released on bail. Following his release, Kanu has been leading a campaign calling for the secession of the southeast of the country. He's been addressing huge rallies and making clearly inciting speeches against other ethnic groups in the country and attacking the Nigerian government. His father's home in the city of Umuahia has become a mecca of some sort for his followers, where he addresses them frequently. All of these, of course, going against the stringent conditions given to him when the court released him on bail. Kanu and his IPOB group have also threatened that the Anambra State governorship election scheduled for November this year will not hold. He has also advised Igbos living in the north of the country to relocate to the southeast. Ohaneze Indigbo, a socio-cultural group in the southeast of the country, have actually made up of elders from that part of the country, have been holding dialogue with Kanu. So also have the governors of the southeast region doing the same with the IPOB leader. But so far, those talks have actually not achieved much. It's against this background that the military launched a special operation known as Python Dance 2 in the southeast of the country. Now, the military says the operation is primarily to boost security in the region, but the general impression is that the operation is meant to check IPOB and its separatist campaign. Now, troops of the Nigerian army and members of IPOB recently clashed in Umuahia, with IPOB saying the action of the military amounts to nothing but an invasion. The situation is still very fluid and the issue is generating a lot of reaction. Joining me now to discuss this seeming clash now between the IPOB and the military in the southeast of Nigeria, particularly in Abia State. Of course, I have GT Ogunye, who is a lawyer, and also I have Shola Salako Ajulo, who is a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much for coming on the program. First, let me start with you, Mr. Ogunye. Do you think the action of the military is an invasion, so to speak, as we've heard a lot of people say, that this is an invasion of the southeast of the country?
I don't think so. I don't accept that description. The armed forces is an armed forces of Nigeria. So the territory of Nigeria and the protection thereof is the business of the armed forces. So when you suggest an invasion, you're suggesting perhaps an alien force invading another territory. So the military cannot invade the territory that it protects. And so, because it's important, the way we cast situations and the way we describe them, because they can generate unwanted, interpretations and then lead to unsavory conclusions and actions. So I don't accept that description. Now, legally, it is also not an invasion. I've heard the argument that the military was not legally deployed. That is not true. That is not true. And this, my usual admonition to professional colleagues, to commentators, just seek to know. Read up the legislation governing a subject. You may have reservations about those provisions. Okay. You may even be alarmed because those provisions were made during the military era. You may therefore call for the amendment of those provisions. But don't distort those provisions and say that they are not there. And I start by saying that Section 217, 2C of the Constitution provides that if there's an insurrection, the president of the country can deploy.
But some people have argued that what is happening in the southeast is not an insurrection.
I will come to that. I will come to that. What's the dictionary definition of an insurrection? I will come to that. So if the president feels that there is an insurrection, he can deploy troops. And that deployment will be subject to any act or legislation that may be made by the National Assembly prescribing the conditions governing that deployment. Thus far, since 1999, the National Assembly has not made a new act prescribing those conditions. The question that comes up for determination, therefore, is whether that provision thereby has become inoperative. My answer is that no. If the National Assembly were to make a legislation tomorrow prescribing those conditions may then curtail the power of the president. But if there are no such provisions or law, the president can exercise that power. So with or without that provision, therefore, with or without that legislation, therefore, the president can do that. Then you move to section 218. And I'll come back to the issue of whether what is going on in the South is an insurrection. You then move to the provision of section 218. And section 218, subsection 1, declares almost imperially that the president shall determine as commander-in-chief of the armed forces the operational use of members of the armed forces. He may delegate these powers to the chief of defense staff and all the other, junior officers that are lower to him in cadre. But he alone, acting as, Christians say that God will not share his glory with anybody. That's why I use the term advisedly, almost imperial, that he shall determine the operational use of the members of the armed forces. And now, the Armed Forces Act, Cap A20, Volume 1 of the Laws of Federation of Nigeria, 2004, an act that was made as a decree in 1993-1994, provides in Section 8, more or less as the Constitution has provided, that the president, as the commander-in-chief, shall determine the operational use of the armed forces, and then defines the operational use of the armed forces to include deploying the members of the armed forces to maintain and secure public safety and order. So if the president decides that public safety and order in any part of the country is in jeopardy, he can deploy the military. If you disagree with those provisions, rush to the National Assembly and say, as the Yoruba will say, a moreo, that these powers are too large. We need to narrow these powers. But don't say that those powers are not there. Now, the question that all this would then lead to is that, do we then have a factual situation on the ground that warrants the exercise of this power? You may say no, you may doubt it. It depends on your interpretation. But I can tell you that even some of the things that we said on the side of the rule of law and human rights and all that have generated a backlash. Look at the social media. People from the Southeast accusing us of pandering too much to this issue of rule of law, that these people have made their lives miserable. Oh yeah. And that they should be dealt with the way they have been dealt with. So you can deny that doesn't arise. But when you have a group of people with that awesome massive mobilization, threatening the holding of an election, and then commanding such respect or fear that the governors of the South now started running helter-skelter to appease him and propitiate him, led to a meeting by a professor of law, Ben Nwabweze, who says that this, my beloved son, in whom I'm well pleased, generating such pandemonium, spewing such hatred, calling for inter-ethnic slaughter, saying all sorts of things.
And that individual has millions of people behind him.
Behind him. So what do you think will happen? And just to demonstrate that, indeed, there was a threat to public safety, when the military intervened, they confronted the military and said that you can't even march on the street.
On the street. You can't come to this.
You can't come to the... So, and I asked, you know, we used to hear military zone, keep off. Is that IPOB's zone now? Is that IPOB's territory? And then, in retaliation, you started killing people in Aba, looking for certain persons and all that. This is how it starts. So you may deny, because you don't have your fingers on all this intelligence and all the security reports. You may deny. But we see what we see. And so, you may not be able to challenge the authority that justifies deploying that troop. We may talk about how those troops or soldiers then function on the ground, how they observe the rule of law, how they respect human rights. And I cap it by saying that, and I yield the floor, cap it by saying that a war may be necessary. And people say, yes, when you are going to war, don't you know that there will be violations or abuses? My answer is that the possibility of violations and abuses during war will not make a necessary war to be avoided. We have all these things. That's why there are conventions that regulate the conduct of troops. So we can now be talking about how those soldiers must behave on the ground. But we may not be able, legally, you can have political consideration. You can say, 2019 is there and all that. I'm not talking about political consideration. I'm just talking about what the law has said, because that's my primary constituency.
Okay, I'm going to come back to you. Let me come to you, Mr. Ajulo, Mrs. Ajulo. You look at, some people have argued that maybe what should have been done first is to use a police action, you know, send the police in there first, and then if the police is not able to bring the situation under control and to normalcy, then you send in the military, and not just send in the military at once.
Okay, the first thing I want to ask about this issue is that when the military got into this territory, were they the aggressors? Did they go in there shooting at people, or they were just, as far as we know, were just doing a parade through that environment? They were not harassing anybody. They just wanted to show. These parade things that we're talking about, it's global. Everybody does it. South Korea and America.
Well, they do it at the square. That's what some people say. That's not on the streets where civilians are.
When you are trying to establish the fact that we are concerned about what is going on around here, you put yourself in that kind of environment to say, look, we are around just in case people want to get out of hand.
Yeah,
but so I
couldn't
don't
the
think
police have been asked to just go in and conduct this show of force?
We know what the police have done before now. They don't forget that Mr. Kanu is already building his own militia. It's his own army that he's building. Whether they are fully armed like the Nigerian army or not. But the fact that someone is gathering a group of people and saying, this is my own army, sewing uniforms for them and doing military drills within a nation, they may have their own rights to agitating for self-determination. Nobody can challenge them on that. But there are laid down processes globally by which such agitations can be realized. By threatening the sovereignty of a nation simply because you want your way. I don't think there's any nation on earth that would fold its arms and watch that descent into, especially with the level of the rhetoric that's been going on. I don't think that's going to bring, nobody's going to feel whatever. So I feel that what they are doing, they are creating a situation whereby you are leaving even the government with no choice but to have to start taking signs to show, I am in charge here. Do you understand? Because they have done everything. They have appeased you. They have appealed. They have listened to voice of reason. They have let you out of prison. They've done all kinds of things just to at least say, okay, look, get you to a dialogue table. But
you believe that release was political?
Of course it was. Of course it was. It was obviously a political negotiation. To say,
Because I'm not aware that he's actually gone for any treatment or what have you. Anyway.
And he has violated every term of that bill. Every one of it. And yet they've been looking at him. If it was somebody else, should government allow that kind of thing if there is a rule of law?
But because Mr. Ogunye talked about the conduct of the military too, and that is what has been generating quite a lot of reaction recently. I mean, we saw some of the, we've seen some of these videos trending online on social media, for instance. This particular one that is generating so much reaction is the one where we see a group of soldiers, you know, asking some civilians to lie down in a puddle, you know, and muddy and start rolling in the dirty water and all of that. Certainly, it's not a good image for the military.
I was shocked when I saw that. That is completely unacceptable. But no human being should be dehumanized like that. Number one, you have already overpowered them because you are in a superior position. Why must you put them through that level of dehumanization? Those are the conditions and the rules that Mr. Ogunye was talking about now. That even in law, there should be a means by which we measure conduct. That conduct was not acceptable. And I also read somewhere that the army had read, in fact, I heard that the army was on air saying that they were investigating that and they were going to prosecute the people who committed that. That was a crime. That can be seen, and well, we can't say it's a war crime now because we are not really at war. But that was not acceptable.
Not
Everybody should condemn that. That's not acceptable. Irrespective of whatever provocation that was going beyond. You already had overpowered them. They couldn't do anything anymore at that point. Why should you put them through that humiliation?
Mr. Ogunye, can I get your take on this? Because, you know, some people have argued that under a situation like this, sometimes it's very difficult to have absolute control over, you know, what some of these soldiers to do out there. I mean, I don't know what your take is.
I don't agree. Do they feed them on hard drugs before they go on operations? That's not a valid excuse. We shouldn't rationalize that kind of barbaric behavior. We're civilized people. We're part and parcel of the civilized global community.
Global community.
That kind of thing shouldn't happen. More so when the subject is a delicate one. Look, our geopolitics, our ethno-religious composition in this country is a reality. And so when you're dealing with something like this, you have to
be very careful.
Very careful.
Sensitive.
Yes, and sensitive. So it is condemnable, as he said. I align with what she said, and I think that shouldn't happen. As a matter of fact, that kind of conduct. You
respect the military authorities and hierarchy to do something.
To have given them thorough briefing before deployment. These are not the things that you do. These are not the things that you do. For example, if there have been engagement, shootout, would they have gone ahead to kill, say, about 200 or 300 people? Wouldn't that have generated globally a picture of a pogrom or genocide? Restraints is important, even in a war situation. So it's condemned, and I hope that kind of thing will not happen anymore. And finally, on that point, because people have, you know, flipped this thing, they've thrown up. We're in Lagos here, and people are living in Arepo, Ogun State here. And for years, those people in the houses were at the mercy of bunkers. And pipeline vendors and all that. In the night, they will be shooting.
And criminals,
people cannot sleep
and
all that. So what did the police do about that? That was not a war. So what did police do? The police couldn't do anything.
They couldn't do anything. Yeah.
They couldn't do anything. At a point, not too long ago, the military was involved, and the Air Force.
The Air Force.
Sorties.
Quite baffling.
Yes.
Quite baffling.
To bomb those people.
In a city.
Yes. So we can look at that, and it baffles me when people say that, no, when these people, about 2 years back, were doing their Python dance there, and they were going to the forest, and arresting kidnappers and all that in
Then
that
the
same
Python dance
Abia
was-
state.
Yes, Python dance was against kidnappers then.
Why didn't people say that the police should have gone in there? That it was just a criminal act. It's not a war. It's not even an insurrection. It's not even a breakdown of law and order. That is just a criminal act that the police should have gone in there to flood them out. Could the police do it? Could they? Are you aware that many of our lawyers who glibly go on television and talk about the SSs and all that without relating to law, you know, when they were kidnapped, the SSS had to intervene to kidnap them. Why didn't they say that the SSS
To free them?
yes, to free them? They didn't complain that the SSS shouldn't have intervened. There was a notorious kidnapping gang in Edo State, around that area, kidnapping everybody. It was the DSS that bust that kidnapping ring. They were so notorious. There was nobody they didn't kidnap, including the wife of a Supreme Court justice in this country. So why didn't people complain that no, the police will have gone there? It's police job, not soldier. I know they go carry kidnappers.
Now, what is quite worrying about all of this is that we're also seeing something that, if not properly handled, could probably spiral out of control. We have also seen a video, for instance, online of some IPOB members actually going from bus to bus and looking for people from a particular tribe of the country, that, looking for them, and you can easily tell what the intention was, and and of course some of those areas completely vacated by this particular tribe. It's not something it's not something you want to start mentioning names here, but you see this video, quite worrisome. It makes this whole situation very scary.
It only be scary. It's been scary for some time. We've just been hoping that reason will prevail. But the way this is going, it's obvious that these people, for whatever is motivating them, do not want reason. Now, my own question is, what exactly do they want? Because if they feel that going this path is what is going to, is their own negotiating tool to get maybe the Nigerian presidency or whatever political calculations that they are making, I think they're making the wrong because these tribes that you are trying to decimate or dehumanize or decapitate.
Well, you surely would need them when it comes to
you are going to need them. There's no single tribe in Nigeria that can make itself, or the massive tribe that can make itself, put itself in power, except it has the support of some other tribes. So trying to demonize these people as if every one of them have done something evil to you, and then you start to threaten their lives, and it's in the end, like I said this morning, it's an ill wind that will blow nobody
any good at all.
Nobody. So I don't understand what. In fact, I should even commend the fact that up until right now, there's been some restraint on the side of this other side of the country, because if not, we know what normally could happen. And then everybody has a right to live and work wherever they are. That is what the Constitution guarantees everybody. And so when you start to threaten my right because you want to establish your right, you threaten my right, then it becomes an issue of somebody has to tell you everybody must be allowed to live side by side. So I don't understand why you get upset with whatever it is that you're upset with, and then the next thing you see is who is not like me, and you descend on that person and you become barbaric and start killing them and all that, forgetting that there are other people like you in other side of the country who can also descend on,
you're also endangering your people's lives elsewhere.
Exactly. Why are they not thinking beyond this point?
Mr. Agunya, I want us to address, let us address the key issue that Nnamdi Kanu, says he wants. He says he wants Biafra, and that what he wants is, he wants a referendum, that the president should call for a referendum. If there was going to be a referendum, actually, can the president actually declare and call for a referendum, for instance, for any part of this country?
I answer your question. But just to preface my answer by saying that Kanu has been evolving. It was later he started talking about referendum. He started by saying that he wanted secession. Yeah. They wanted a country of their own. That's what he started with. He went to prison, maybe he cooled down a little bit and came out and started talking about referendum. So it's been evolving. Yeah. So we still need to ask him, what he actually wants. Is it secession? Is it restructuring? Is it referendum? And whatever. But whatever he wants, the Constitution, and I reference Section 39 of the Constitution, guarantees the right to freedom of expression. So you can call for secession. That alone, standing alone, is not a criminal act. You're just expressing your wish. You can even organize a civic organization to persuade people to believe that this is the best thing to do. The right to self-determination is still there. But when you then cross the red line and start engaging in criminality, making hate speech, inciting the civic populace, calling on them to kill people, to banish people, to behead people, you are playing a dangerous game. And so, for the referendum that he's talking about, assuming that that's what he wants now, I would say that the president, acting alone as the president, has no power under the Constitution to organize a referendum. So, if he wants a referendum, in the prevailing circumstances,
probably go to the National Assembly.
Then have to prevail and then go to the National Assembly that let's have a referendum and all that. And perhaps you don't even know whether the people of this country, in their majority, will not support such a thing. That this thing has been lingering for long. Let's even try it and see whether it is yes or no. And you may be shocked if that referendum is organized that Kanu will be in a miserable minority. Because look at Nigeria. Look at the integration that has taken place. Look at the inter-ethnic marriages that have taken place and all that.
Yes.
Businesses that have flourished outside your own ethnic cocoons. Look at all that. So when you start talking about secession, for example, you want a referendum of secession, and people then see the end result, they may need to ask themselves, do we really want secession? So if we do that, what will happen? We'll be a landlocked country. Then we won't have access to the sea. And what's going to be the implication? The people of the South may look at it and say that, oh, even if that were to be supported, and you go, and you already become a country, because we are your next neighbor, and you have an expansionist or an annexation agenda, when will be your prey? When will be your prey? So we can't support you to have secession because we know that the next time you come and wage a war on us. So it's not as easy as people just assume. So if he wants that, he has to act politically, in a politically correct manner to get.
And because you talked about his speeches, I just want to read some of what Nnamdi Kanu has said, because for me that is the biggest worry in all of this. The biggest worry for me is not whether he says he wants secession or he wants referendum or whatever he wants, but the kind of language he uses when he addresses these huge crowds. The huge crowd we see him address sometimes. It's more than, saying it's offensive, it's even putting it mildly. Let me just read out some of what he has said, so I get your reactions on it. At one occasion, he says, when we speak, the zoo, and by the zoo, of course, he means Nigeria, that the zoo trembles. That is what happens when a cattle-rearing terrorist and pedophile is your ruler. That's one. One of his speeches, he says, if you find anybody in your village asking after Radio Biafra, kill the baboon, Hausa, Fulani, or Yoruba bastard. Forgive my language. Let them keep searching, and we will keep tweeting. #Biafra. Then another place he said, Buhari is a shameless pedophile and rapist. Again, he said, Buhari is a terrorist. He should be killed. Here, he says, Kumuyi, of course, is the Deeper Life. Yeah. Kumuyi should be stoned and dealt with thoroughly if he comes to Aba for his planned crusade. At that time, Kumuyi was planning to go to Aba for crusade. Then on Jonathan, he said, the imbecilic Goodluck Jonathan is a disgrace to humanity and deserves to be skinned alive for handing over to an Hausa goat.
My God.
And then, you know, I can just go on and on and on and on. Here it says, no Igbo man should attend any church where the pastor is a Yoruba man. They are all criminals and fools. And then that Nigeria should prepare for war. We're coming to annihilate you. My secret service are already studying the zoo and strategizing. It's either Biafra or death. Now, the problem I have is, can we say, because I've heard people say, you know, that everything he does has been peaceful and all of that. How can you relate peace with some of those comments?
I think the guy is hallucinating. I think he's hallucinating.
Because the reason I'm saying this is, whether we like it or not, the millions of his followers believe this. They take everything here hook, line, and sinker. And whether we like it or not, this kind of speech or this kind of lines could elicit strong reactions elsewhere.
Definitely. I mean, this cannot be acceptable anywhere in the world. It's not acceptable, irrespective of whatever your agitations may be. It is expected in the human society that you conduct yourself in a civil manner to push for whatever it is that you desire to get. I feel also that the federal government, apart from the military display and whatever that they may be doing, needs to also step up on some level of propaganda. And I'll tell you what I mean. If
or
this,
engagement, you mean?
well, you see, well, it will become propaganda because this guy is already pushing all this propaganda here, and they need to counter him on that level too. Because I am sure that if a whole lot of the people who are his closet supporters, you know, quite a lot of them don't listen to him to this level. They just romanticize what he seems to stand for. But if we start to raise this up with them and start to get them to understand this is exactly what this guy wants, is that once you say you are in support of him in any manner, then that means you are in support of him on totally. You start to see people saying, because now I see a refrain in everybody's post online. I am not in support of I am not a fan of Nnamdi, but I'm not. You can't but him because this is the totality of who he is. So it is also embarrassing for me and for all my Eastern friends, and I have quite a lot of them, who are like brothers to me and sisters, that this kind of person will be the person that will be representing you. These are people who on every level can match on any intellectual level, and this is the kind of person that you want to be the picture or the face of an agitation that you claim is a how do you call it, an ethnic agenda. It immediately tells the whole world that to give you that country is to put the whole world at risk. Because if this person is the one who is the face of that country that you want to settle, then the world should get ready that it will consistently and constantly be in conflict. So who wants to create that kind of life? I think everybody within the ethnic region of the southeast need to get back now. You know, there's a Yoruba adage that says, "Agba okinwa loja, kori omo tutun wo." What it means is that you can't have elders in the marketplace and the head of a child is almost off his neck and on his mother's back. It is time for the ones who are the voice of reason to get up and say something. But it looks like everybody is playing politics here, DG. Everybody is keeping quiet because they are hoping to be the beneficiary of whatever it is that they think Nnamdi Kanu and his drama is going to be able to get for them. And if they don't step up now, they may also be the beneficiary of the carcass or the carnage that may end up being the result. Because if they keeping quiet, they become the beneficiaries of whatever the outcome of that thing will be. And the way it's going, I don't see it being something positive.
Mr. Akunyi, I mean, let me just read out one more comment, and then I get you this. One thing he also said. He said, Buhari married his wife after raping her several times. The records are there. That's what he said.
You know, in law, you have what is called, in the law of defamation, vulgar abuse. which is not actionable. You know, he said a lot of gibberish, inanities and all that. And these are very provocative. You know, he's insulted people and all that. And there's some executive in this country, I'm talking about the political setting now, that have said many of these things that he's saying in a different manner, right? Some of them have immunities, so they can't be touched and all that. And we don't expect a president of a country, of a governor, to get angry and say, go and kill somebody because he's abused you, right? But there's a saying that action speaks louder than words. I'm bothered more about his action. If all these are just standing alone without Kanu taking steps that we can all see to actualize what he's saying, we can then say he's just talking nonsense. But he's taking those steps. So when you then marry those two together, what he says and what he does, you then know that we have a problem on our hand, that the federal government should have a responsibility to solve, and they are taking that step. Now, the concern that has been raised is a concern that is there, which is, how can this person be the face of the Southeast? You know, in the Southwest, at a point, the OPC gained so much prominence that they were almost holding everybody by the jugular. Sure. And people were also taunting us the way some of our compatriots are taunting our Southeast compatriots now. That, why did you allow this kind of thing to happen? You know, Kanu is tapping into the anger that pervades everywhere. That anger is not only in the Southeast. It's everywhere in the country. And we need to deal with that anger. There's socio-economic inequities in the land. There are political injustices of a historical kind. All these things we will then have to address, so that people like Kanu will no longer have the foot soldiers that he so desperately needs to speak out his hate speech and all that. But I've heard people talk about marginalization. And I ask myself, who is being marginalized? Until recently, and this is very important. If I were talking about the ethnic profiling or the geopolitical profiling of those who have governed Nigeria at the highest helm, you know, since 1999, the Hausa Fulani North, Yaradua, and it's about 3 years. So is it that we are imagining that if we are to remain a country, you can't even tolerate somebody from another part of the country governing? And I say, so what's the marginalization here?
And you're right.
Are there,
it's about 3 years.
Are there issues of nepotism in power? Oh, yes. Do we need to address them? Oh, yes. But until recently, the face of Aso Rock looks so much like the face of the Southeast that people started wondering whether, and because we forget a lot, Afenifere people here.
That's true, I remember.
Of the PDP persuasion in the Southwest here was complaining so bitterly that that issue was then resolved when Goodluck Jonathan appointed the brother of one of them, Shende Arugbofa's brother, as the chief
of staff. Yeah.
The West was complaining about marginalization in the hands of Goodluck Jonathan in this country. The SGF was an Igbo man. The minister, the coordinating minister of the economy was an Igbo woman. All the parastatals in the Ministry of Finance at the point were headed by Igbos in this country. Is that fair? No. So does that mean that, okay, when you then leave power, then the other person should now appoint his own people? It becomes a rat race. So we need equity in the country. We need fair play. We need egalitarianism. These are ideals that we must continue to work on to see that we achieve them. But don't just quickly rush up as if you've forgotten what happened in the recent past. We need to be sober. And so if there are people in the Southeast that are just imagining that, oh, Kanu is a rod with which we are going to whip the Buhari presidency to win concessions, I think they should have a rethink. This is a bad rod. This is a bad whip. Go and look for a better whip. And then put what you want on the table. And everybody will associate with that. Not this kind of thing.
That's true.
That is causing a lot of confusion and all that. And people are complaining in Southeast already that, investors are moving away from their zone because of this kind of uncertainty. And I think that it's not fair.
In the end, they are the ones who are suffering.
It's not fair.
The whole economy in that environment will suffer. This is an economy that they're just trying to build.
And I'm saying that you may argue for your right to succession. I will respect you. You may argue for right to self-determination. You may argue for resource control. You may argue for another state, even when we are saying that all the states we have now, maybe we need to consolidate them like we did with the banks.
And some people are saying,
and I think already, I think that some people are already suggesting that should we be consolidating some of these states already?
Because they are not viable.
Because they are not viable. so we can't be talking about Ogun State, but even in Lagos here, this small patch of land, people are talking about Badagry State, New Lagos State, Lagoon State. Are you kidding me? So we can be talking about all that, but don't come around and then start stoking ethnic hatred. And start talking about, that's the enemy. Look, the 6 million Jews that were killed by the word of mouth first. Because
that's even going
before
too
the
far.
gasification.
Take
Rwanda.
what happened in Rwanda.
In Rwanda.
Just that line, kill the cockroaches, led to the extermination of 800,000.
Now look at what happened the other time on this one. And I don't think that people have even paid attention to this very well. When that procession of the military was taking place, the officers commanding those troops there were of Yoruba extraction, including the one that was injured. Assuming there was a retaliation and people have been killed, it will just take a word of mouth. These Yoruba people, they are the hirelings of the Hausa Fulani hegemony. So they've brought them here to kill us. Kill all of them.
That's it.
And that's it. So we need to be careful. And so when I see people queuing behind this man and saying that, whether it's a monk, whether it's I don't know what he is, queuing behind him and saying that, yes, he's their leader. I don't understand. I don't understand. Here, when the Ghanaian dams of this world were doing some of their things, people were saying, what do you think you people are doing? Yeah, we had June 12th struggle, a coalition, yes, and all that, but now we have a civil rule as ramshackle as it is. So every day in Lagos, you'll be fighting and killing people and all that. So is that what you should be doing? Disrupting traffic? And at a time, they had a rethink. And they started going into security work. Neighborhood defense. And people started hailing them. So much so that today, because there has been an evolution, they are sitting down with the police command. Do you know that at the time the police was hunting for the head of Ghanaian dams, and people were reputing with the power of disappearing and appearing? Really? So the police are now sitting down with him on how to deal with the Badu courts. That's an evolution. That's an improvement. So, and without prejudice to the political issue here, what people will determine whether people want to be on their own as a country and all that. And I don't agree with the president that we can't discuss Nigeria. We can't even discuss whether we're going to. No. It must be on the table. But because we better live by persuasion rather by force. By force. But at the same time, if you're going to deal with that in a way that is legitimate and acceptable. And in a way that will build consensus. Otherwise, it will be tantamount to also waging war on the people you claim because you have not surveyed them. You have not conducted a poll to know what they really want. So you just imposing your views on them and thinking for them rather than thinking with them.
Thank you very much for coming on the program. We just have to end the discussion here. All right, we'll take a short break now, but when we come back, we'll continue this discussion. I'll be having another guest join us on the program. Every day, every hour, and every minute, news break in Nigeria. Things happen so fast, it's most times difficult to track and comprehend them. But that's what we do right here on DEJI360. 2015, would you want to come back again?
It's like asking Jesus Christ if he knew he was going to die, will you want to come back as the savior of the world again?
We do not just help you track the stories, we break them down. explore all the angles, analyze the issues so that you can fully comprehend the stories and use them to make the right decisions.